there's a lot of reasons why this is taking place right now. This one's going to be something for people who really struggle with this feeling of overwhelm. We've developed this system where we're suddenly connected to everything that's going on in the world, and our brains have maybe not quite evolved to catch up with this new external development. So all of the time we're being inundated with stuff, everybody's stuff from every corner of the globe, and we don't really get to explore the depth and the intricacies of any one of those bits of stuff, because it's like swipe onto the next thing, onto the next thing. So we get a kind of a broad overview. Typically we're trained to look for things that might be a threat and might feel dangerous, and so if we're swiping, we're going to zone in on those things that really attract our attention. Typically things that make us very angry, things that make us feel very afraid, things that might be a threat. This is not new information. You've probably seen this in documentaries like The Social Dilemma. What's the thing that's going to attract the most attention? Well, it's the stuff that's going to get the brainstem. You will start to feel those feelings, maybe feelings of anxiety, anger, some kind of fight, flight, some kind of sympathetic nervous system activation, complete shutdown. I'm helpless. I'm just going to go into my little shell here. Shutdown is your dorsal vagal, parasympathetic, but like extreme parasympathetic, and then a freeze is maybe something that oscillates between the two. So it's like high levels of fight, flight, adrenaline energy, very, very strong levels of shutdown. And then that situation that's happening within here, all of those feelings start to generate thoughts, because the mind is always trying to justify what's happening and explain and put into context and structure with language what's going on. The thoughts that you have when your system is in that state might be apocalyptic thoughts. The brain is trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, but it's trying to predict the worst case scenario to prepare you in case that might actually happen. There is some utility in that. You know, they talk about planning for the worst and hoping for the best. So it's doing it with your best interest in mind, but it is doing so in a way that is maybe leaving you feeling chronically overwhelmed and anxious about anything. And we're going to specifically look at the anxiety overwhelm set of thoughts in between flight response and shutdown response. It's not the thought so much that is the scary. The thought is just a placeholder for a feeling, and you can start to conjure and imagine what something would be like, but you don't really know what that thing would be like until you are there. You can imagine that it would be bad, but oftentimes you are able to handle way more than you think that you are. But because we see something that feels like a threat, we'll try to avoid it, and then it becomes this ambiguous thing that we're creating tension between, that starts to create and generate this emotional charge. So what are the thoughts that I am afraid of? But more specifically, what are the feelings that don't feel safe when I think those thoughts? It's about the feelings, and what are the feelings that you can just gently learn to feel safe feeling. And if I can just start to release a little bit of the stress and energy from the feelings, then the thoughts lose their potency. If you can start to ask your body, what is it that you need? So our feelings will be an indication of some need that is either being met or not being met. What do I need? What is this feeling trying to tell me? Because typically, most times it's like, well, the feeling is feeling like this. My immediate need is probably for safety to sit and actually feel. The feeling itself wants to be heard. The feeling itself is trying to give us a message. And so in order for it to give us a message, in the same way that if you're really trying to understand somebody, you just let them talk. You listen, and you try to listen between the words to what's the need that's actually driving this thing at the moment. And you can treat yourself in the same way. If you have a feeling and you have these repetitive thoughts that are coming up, and it's anxious thoughts and worry about the future, you don't have to believe the thoughts, but you can listen to them and just listen to what's needed in that moment. That might be, oh, I need to slow down, I need to connect. If I really want to get the full sense of what's going on here, I need to start to widen my perspective. If I'm in that sympathetic activation state, my vision is actually narrowed and I'm just looking for threats. And then I will end up finding things that are threats that self-justify the feeling that I'm feeling. So we're going to look at a little bit of this anxiety and overwhelm today, and we'll start to tap through some of the stress and see if we can't help ourselves come down into a bit more of a peripheral perspective. What I want you to do first is take your hand and put it on the back of your head. So just below where the spine meets the brain stem. I'm going to take the other hand and put it on the forehead. Just take a breath here for a moment and think about all of this activity happening in the brain. So often it can be useful to put this in context. I have these thoughts, and these thoughts are so consuming, they consume so much attention and energy. But everything that's happening in that regard is being generated from this space just between my two hands here. So in terms of physical space, there's not a lot of space that's being taken up by this, yet sometimes these thoughts can be so hypnotic. It's like they take over my whole world. The way I'm perceiving it, the way I'm filtering it, the way I'm bringing it in through into my body and receiving that information, synthesizing it. It's easy to get lost and think that everything that I believe is actually true. But we want to look at those thoughts, those electrical signals that are being active within the space between my two hands here. We want to look at those as signals that the system is not feeling safe, or it's feeling something that it wants us to know about. Maybe that feeling feels really intense, and it could be relevant today, but it could also be something that's coming up from a long time ago that we haven't really wanted to hear, we haven't really wanted to connect with. And we're just expanding into that feeling, we're just expanding into that place, that nervous system response, the present moment, where we are right now, whatever is being presented by our bodies, just being here. Change over, it starts to get a little bit tiring. And while you're doing this, I want you to just start to breathe. It's basically a cooling breath that comes in through the mouth. And it's just like a sigh on repeat. So you can continue to do that as we walk through this meditation. Hands to the back of the head. Start to touch around the jaw. Start to stroke from the eyebrows down behind the ears. And listen to the thoughts, listening to the tempo and the pace of the thoughts, cadence, the pitch. They might be telling a story. And what the story feels like in our bodies might bring about this level of intensity, this level of adrenaline. And right now, regardless of what the story is, the experience might be high anxiety. We're going to spend a little bit of time with that and actually be here with that, rather than trying to figure it out, rather than trying to convince it away, rather than trying to out-logic it, force down that feeling. We're actually going to do the opposite and start to pull it a little bit closer. Relax the muscles, the jaw, relax the muscles around the face, continuing to breathe. just gently breathe with this feeling of overwhelm. So typically emotions, once they're fully connected with, they don't last longer than a minute and a half. They just need that quality of presence, that quality of connection. And it's not always that what they have to tell us in story terms is accurate, but it does need listening to. We do have to maintain that, almost like an external space that we can observe ourselves through. Some traditions, they call it the witness. So you're just witnessing, observing without reacting, without being pulled into the gravitational field of these thoughts and merging with them, so that we start to think that they are us and we are them. We're not going to merge with these thoughts just now. Sit back and open up that presence and that awareness that helps us observe them and feel them and connect with them, but not from a place that obscures our broader perspective of reality, that obscures us from seeing all of what's going on. They might be very loud thoughts. They might have a lot of worry to them. If this, then this. What about if this happens? I need to do something about this now. I can't do anything about this. I'm helpless. All these kinds of thoughts. And they might be very, very convincing in what they're saying. I want you to notice as you experience them the reality of them being electrical signals within your system. Electrical signals translated into sound, sound that's structured into words, words that lands in a part of the brain that makes meaning. We can observe them on that level of reality, rather than being captivated by the story that they're telling us, hypnotized by their song. We can sit here and breathe with it and stay in our bodies, just gently remain there for the whole time, so that we're not checking out, going unconscious and going numb. Okay, hand on the belly, hand on the chest. Notice what you feel like now, just after beginning to slow things down a little bit and connect with them. So as you're noticing what's going on inside the body, you can also start to notice what's going on in the space around the body. So maybe 1 meter outside the body, 2 meters, you can spread it a little bit further. And you're really not doing anything that extraordinary, you're just diffusing and dilating your awareness so that it fills the space around you. You can gently expand that to start to fill up the room. And see how that feels. And you might start to notice that already that high intensity sympathetic response, or the shutdown response, when put in the context of reality, as in I'm a physical body here having an experience within the context of the space around me. things can flow and move between me and that space, most notably the breath as it flows in and flows back out again. I'm inhaling the environment and then letting it go again. And at this moment in time, I'm able to handle this. I'm able to handle what's happening right here, right now. I don't know about the next moments, but right here, right now, even if this is really uncomfortable, just gonna notice that I'm still here. My body's coping with it, and as I gently let my vision move out to the sides, start to see what's at the peripheral, I can also assure myself that I'm here, and in this moment I'm safe. Might feel scary, might feel uncomfortable, and at the same time it's also okay. As long as I keep breathing, that inhale and exhale with the environment, I'm going to continue. Now let's start tapping around the chest. All this anxiety, all this overwhelm. There's so much to do. Feels like there's so much going on. There's so many things going on. And I feel like I have so little control. I feel helpless. I feel powerless. And when I think about that, I feel really upset. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel powerless and helpless. And the part of me that feels powerless feels completely at odds with the part of me that's saying, I need to do something about this right now. All of the tension between I need to do something about this right now and I can't do anything about it. I'm helpless and powerless. It's causing me a lot of upset. I don't want to feel this level of stress. I really hate feeling this way. It feels so uncomfortable. This level of worry, this high-pitched, high-tempo level of worry, I feel it in my chest. I feel it below my solar plexus in my belly. It's like this big knot in my stomach. And a really fast heartbeat. All this dread and tension. All this dread and anxiety. And all these worried thoughts. What if all these bad things happen? That's what I'm really worried about. Really bringing all this worry up to the surface. Really expanding myself to accommodate. all this worry and tension. All this worry and tension. It feels so uncomfortable. I really want to let it go. But it feels like if I don't worry this much, then I'm not going to be motivated. It feels like I have to worry. Almost feels like part of who I am. And while I can certainly experience this worry, and while I experience it, it's true that a part of me resists it. It's definitely not all of who I am. In fact, I can experience lots of things. It could be that I've had this worry for so long that I've mistaken this trauma response for a personality. It could be that I've practiced being this worried for so long that I don't know what I'd do without it. I don't know who I'd be. Maybe I would disappear. Maybe I wouldn't be motivated. Maybe I wouldn't strive to change things. And that's why I need to hold on to this worry. That's why I need to hold on to this anxiety. It doesn't feel safe to let it go. It doesn't feel safe to let it go. It doesn't feel safe to relax. That sounds like the anxiety story. Definitely sounds like the anxiety talking. Creating its own stories that justify its existence. And there could be some truth to it. There could be reasons to worry. But not all of those reasons are happening right here, right now. And I'd much rather find a place for this worry that's grounded in reality, that puts it alongside all of the other things that are worthy of my attention. And it's often said that whatever you focus on expands. And so the more I focus on this anxiety, the more it starts to consume my life. The more I focus on this overwhelm, the more helpless I start to feel. And I'd really like to learn a different way. I'd really like to start to feel good. And I'd really like to start to hold myself differently. When I'm experiencing this worry. Because I know what the anxiety is really saying. Beneath everything else. is that I'm worried that connection is going to go away. I'm worried that I won't be able to feel that connection. And it's that connection that helps me feel safe. And if I become disconnected for too long, I'm not going to feel safe. And sometimes when things are moving really fast, or my system is moving really fast, it's very difficult for me to feel that connection. And when I feel that disconnection, that's what exacerbates the anxiety. That's what exacerbates the feeling of overwhelm. That's what perpetuates the feeling of shutdown. And so I want to be willing to connect right here, right now, with everything that I'm feeling, even though it might feel really uncomfortable and it could feel really scary. And I don't even know if I'm going to do a good job. And I don't even know if I've got time. And there's so much happening. It feels like I don't even have a minute. But maybe being here with this worry, and being here with this anxiety, will at least help my system slow down. And breathing with it, breathing through it, and bringing it closer rather than pushing it away is the solution to all this worry. If a young child was worried, somebody that I really cared about, the last thing I would do is push it away. I would bring it closer. And I would help it to feel safe. And that doesn't mean I would try to fix it. That doesn't mean I would try to deny its experience. It just means that I would be with it. Gently breathe. And maybe rock and sway. And soothe its system until it started to feel safe again. Maybe I can take that approach with myself. Because all of the things that are going to happen in the future are going to happen anyway. And the only place I can do anything about anything is right here, right now. And the best way I can have power with this present moment is to actually connect with it and help my system come down from all this hypervigilance and let go of all this stress and slowly soothe it back from shutdown. Without judging, criticizing, or shaming. But actually just noticing the reality that my system's having an experience. And a part of my brain wants to label it good or bad. But there's a place that I can see this from. Where I'm actually just having an experience. And every experience is digestible. As long as I keep breathing. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'll keep breathing. And as I do, I'll start to recognize that I can handle this too. And all of these worst case scenario thoughts, even if they come true, as long as I keep breathing, I'll find a way through them. And so all this terror and all these deep fears, I'm willing to loosen my grip. I'm willing to let them go a little bit. Just to see what that feels like. I'm going to gently start to let my system know that it's safe to feel okay. And the more I practice feeling safe to be okay, the more that can start to become my personality. The more I can start to settle into this as a new way of being. So willing to release all this stress and worry. Willing to release all this overwhelm. I'm willing to be right here, right now. Slowing things down, breaking it down into breath by breath, moment by moment, putting one foot in front of the other, and trusting that life will continue. That I can be a part of it, and that things can be better than they have been up until now. I'm willing to let myself know that, and I'm willing to be at peace. Notice what's there in the body. Just for this last part, we're going to gently stroke down the arms. Continue to breathe. This right here in the solar plexus. When there's this high anxiety response and the shutdown, it's like the power is being taken away, and you start to bring the system back online again, down from its hypervigilance and up from its place of shutdown. You start to feel things moving around in the solar plexus a little bit more, and discover that actually you have more power than you think that you do in the moment. You know, when you're in the shutdown, high anxiety state, it's very easy to think I'm powerless and to take that story on and carry it forward. Whereas all you really need to do is just bring that system back down to a level, even baseline, and you can see that I can make a choice with the moment, with my life, rather than just being at the effects of it, just being a victim to it. I have something that I can do, even if it's a small thing, and it might not be exactly what I want. The choice that I have might not be something that I like, but I always have some level of, I can choose this or I can choose that. And starting to realize that is something that can help you bring a little bit more agency back in with yourself and what you're doing. So take your time with it, go through this video as much as you would like. It's always good to keep practicing releasing this survival stress and practicing that train of thought, so that when you get stuck in those places, your mind has a way to go, but also your body has the path. You can come out of that dysregulated state and just come back down into a nice stable baseline, because ideally you want to be able to feel your anxiety and feel your shutdown when you need to, because they're both essential responses. But it's when that gets stuck and you get stuck between high tension and then complete shutdown, going back and forth between these two things, that's when it starts to become a problem. So you're just gently allowing these two things to come together and releasing this stress day by day until this starts to feel like, oh, this is where I am, this is who I am, I can be relaxed, and look, it's safe. Terrible things are not happening in the way that I thought that they might be. So hopefully that was useful. Let me know if there's anything you want me to look at or anything stood out for you in the comments. Have a serene rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.